From the dusty pages of antiquity to contemporary headlines, today we will discover the deadliest pandemics that have sculpted the final destiny of entire civilizations. Number 6. The COVID-19 pandemic, also known as the coronavirus pandemic, was a pandemic derived from the disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It was initially called Wuhan pneumonia, since the first cases were identified in December 2019 in the Chinese city of Wuhan, when cases of a group of sick people with an unknown type of pneumonia were reported. The World Health Organization, WHO, declared it a public health emergency of international importance on January 30, 2020, a condition that remained until May 5, 2023, when the WHO decreed the end of the health emergency. However, the course of the disease remains pandemic, a condition in force since March 11, 2020, when the WHO reported that there were 4,291 deaths and 118,000 cases in 114 countries. The disease produces symptoms that include fever, cough, dyspnea, shortness of breath, myalgia, muscle pain, and fatigue. In severe cases it is characterized by pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, sepsis, and circulatory shock. Septic shock is the most common form in these cases, but other types can also occur. As of August 8, 2023, there have been more than 692 million cases of the disease in 160 countries and territories, and 20 million deaths. On the other hand, by January 2023, 5,294 million people will have been vaccinated with at least one dose, 66% of the world population. The WHO estimates that at least 10% of the world's population had already been infected with this disease, approximately 780 million infected people, due to the large underreporting of cases worldwide. Number 5. HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, is the virus that causes AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. HIV is believed to have originated in non-human primates in Africa, and transmission to humans occurred in the late 19th century or early 20th century. The HIV pandemic was first recognized in the 1980s and spread globally. HIV attacks the body's immune system, weakening the body's ability to fight infections and diseases. AIDS is the advanced stage of HIV infection and is characterized by severe immunodeficiency. Patients with AIDS are susceptible to opportunistic infections and cancers that can be fatal. HIV is mainly transmitted through unprotected sexual relations, sharing contaminated needles, transfusions of infected blood, and from mother to child during childbirth or breastfeeding. The press in the 1980s came to call this virus pink plague or homosexual syndrome, since people with this unknown disease showed a common denominator: their blood contained few lymphocytes and they had sex with other men, which caused openly homophobic expressions such as gay cancer to soon appear. Although these terms no longer appear anywhere, the truth is that the prejudices around this virus have not yet disappeared. Since the beginning of the epidemic, it is estimated that AIDS has claimed the lives of more than 32 million people worldwide. Over the years, significant advances have been made in the treatment and prevention of AIDS, but despite these advances, the disease remains a global health concern, and there is still no definitive cure. Number 4. Information about diseases of the past is more unknown the further back we go in history. However, there is clear evidence to suggest that the plague of Justinian is the fourth most devastating plague, killing more than 40 million people. According to demographic estimates from the 6th century, it led to the death of 26% of the population. Its origin dates back to the Byzantine Empire in the rats that traveled hundreds of kilometers on merchant ships, which sailed to the different corners of Eurasia between the year 541 and 549. The plague was recurrent in areas near Mediterranean ports until approximately the year 750. The plague of Justinian came in several forms, including bubonic plague and pulmonary plague. Symptoms included high fever, swollen lymph nodes, abscesses, internal bleeding, and, in the case of pulmonary plague, severe respiratory symptoms. The disease was highly contagious and was spread through fleas that infested rats and was transmitted from person to person. The most accepted places as the origin of the pandemic are the commercial enclaves of East Africa, and its most accepted cause is found in the Yersinia pestis bacteria, as in the later case of the Black Death, although coming from a different strain. In this case, its name referred to the first Roman Emperor Justinian, who then ruled the Byzantine Empire. The plague of Justinian had a devastating impact on the Byzantine Empire and other parts of the Mediterranean world, contributing to the weakening of the Byzantine Empire, and had significant economic and social effects on the Mediterranean world during that period. Number 3. Contrary to what it may seem due to its name, the Spanish flu killed 50 million people worldwide and, despite its name, it did not start in Spain. Although there is no consensus regarding its origin, many scientists place its first cases in the United States in 1918. In the context of a world war in which Spain was neutral, that state did not censor information about the epidemic and its consequences, unlike the countries involved in the war, which eliminated all information about it in order not to demoralize to the troops and not show their most vulnerable points to the enemy. Therefore, the Spanish media were the first to report on the disease, and also one of the most affected countries with 9 million people infected and 800,000 people dead. Patients with this terrible flu suffered from intense headaches, high fever, ear pain, body fatigue, chronic diarrhea and occasional vomiting, which led them to have an almost skeletal appearance. As there were no health protocols to follow, patients were crowded into small, unventilated spaces and bodies were packed into morgues and cemeteries. At that time, the cloth and gauze mask would become popular, with which the population felt calmer, even though they were totally useless. At that time, censorship and lack of resources prevented investigation of the lethal focus of the virus. It is now known that the Spanish flu was caused by an outbreak of influenza virus A, subtype H1N1. Unlike other viruses, many of its victims were healthy adults between 20 and 40 years old. Finally, in the summer of 1920, the virus disappeared as it had arrived. Number 2. The Black Death is considered one of the most devastating epidemics in human history. The sudden outbreak of this disease in the 14th century affected, according to current prediction models, approximately 200 million dead people, which translated into percentage represents 60% of the population of Europe. According to current data, the beginning of the Black Death pandemic had its epicenter in Asia, and spread through trade routes to Europe until reaching its maximum peak between 1347 and 1353. Although it has been blamed for centuries for its originating from rats, a 2018 study suggested it spread through fleas and lice on people. Symptoms of this disease included high fever, swollen lymph nodes, called buboes, hemorrhages under the skin that often resulted in black spots, hence the name Black Death, and other serious symptoms such as chills, weakness, and delirium. The disease spread rapidly, spreading like wildfire throughout North Africa, Asia, the Middle East and Europe with very high mortality. At this time, the renowned plague doctors appeared, wearing a long tunic reaching to their feet, a wide-brimmed hat, leather gloves and boots, glasses, and a terrifying-looking mask shaped like a beak. This peaked mask had protective glasses in the eye area, to avoid contact with the putrid air and the toxic vapors of the sick and corpses. Although the severity of the plague was different depending on the area, the ravages of its consequences on an economic, political, and social level were overwhelming, especially when public opinion began to blame the Jews as responsible for the poisoning of drinking water canals. Number 1. Smallpox, named in honor of the pustules it causes on the skin. Smallpox was a devastating pandemic with a mortality rate of 30%, especially high among children and babies. Although its origin is unknown, there is evidence of its existence in a very early period, since remains have been found in Egyptian mummies dating from the 3rd century BC. Throughout history, the disease spread in periodic outbreaks and expanded massively when the conquerors arrived in the New World. According to estimates, some 400,000 people died each year in 18th century Europe, and a third of those who achieved to survive, they developed blindness or were left with serious facial injuries. The most notable features of this disease were a rash on the areas of the hands, feet, chest, face or mouth, or near the genital area, including the penis, testicles, lips, vagina and anus. The incubation period was 3 to 17 days. During this time, a person has no symptoms and may feel fine. The patient also suffered from fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes, exhaustion, muscle and back pain, headache and respiratory symptoms such as sore throat, nasal congestion, or cough. Prior to the appearance of vaccination, inoculation was practiced in China to prevent the disease since the 10th century AD. In 1977, the last case of contagion of the virus was recorded, so the WHO declared its eradication in 1980, after various efforts to globalize vaccination campaigns. However, it is estimated that smallpox killed up to 500 million people worldwide from its spread to its total eradication. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, so we can bring you more of history's finest tops from around the world.